In the modern world, we've professionalized grief. We have funeral directors, sterile chapels, and grief counselors. We treat death like a problem to be managed. But 40,000 years ago, there was no distance. When someone you loved stopped breathing, you didn't call a service. You held them. Today, we're going into the secret history of the broken heart. Why do we feel grief at all? Evolution is usually cold. If someone dies, they're gone. But for ancient humans, grief was a survival mechanism. It was the biological glue that kept the tribe together. To love someone enough to mourn them meant you were willing to die to protect them. Grief is the price we paid for the social bond that allowed us to conquer the planet. Imagine being the first human to realize that gone meant forever. Before hospitals, death was a constant, intimate neighbor. You watched it happen in the middle of the night, or during a hunt. There was no closing the eyes. You faced the raw physical reality of a body that was no longer there. And somewhere in that moment, something changed. The living realized that the person beside them would never answer again. One of the most widespread secrets of ancient grief is red ochre. From Africa to Europe, we find ancient burials associated with this vibrant red mineral. It wasn't necessarily just decoration. To an ancient mind, red was the color of blood, the color of life. By painting the dead red, perhaps they were trying to give them their life back, or perhaps they were preparing them for a second birth. We can't know for certain, but the message seems clear. The dead were still being cared for. For a long time, scientists thought Neanderthals were brutes. Then came Shanidar Cave. Inside one burial, researchers found evidence of pollen and plant remains associated with flowers. Yarrow, cornflower, and other wild plants have been discussed in connection with the burial. But here's where the story gets complicated. Scientists still debate exactly how those plants got there. They may have been deliberately placed. They may have entered the cave naturally. We simply don't know. But if those flowers were placed there intentionally, the implication is extraordinary. Thousands of years before the first florist, a grieving group may have climbed a mountain just to bring flowers to someone they loved. What do you do with the things they left behind? We find ancient graves containing objects that may have had personal meaning. A favorite flint knife, a carved bone, a particular smooth stone. They weren't necessarily just burying objects. They may have been preserving something connected to the person. These could have been the world's earliest heirlooms, objects that carried memory from one generation to another. Because sometimes, when a person disappears, the things they touched become the closest thing we have to holding them again. A physical object becomes a bridge between the living and the dead. Grief wasn't always a private affair like it is today. When a member of a small group died, the loss didn't belong to one person. The whole community felt it. Across human societies, mourning has taken many forms: chanting, dancing, crying, rituals, and sometimes acts of physical mourning. They didn't simply get over it. They moved through the pain together as a single, loud, vibrating human unit. Because when one person disappeared, everyone was reminded of how fragile the entire group really was. But grief had another problem. What if the dead weren't really gone? What if their memory followed you? Ancient people lived much closer to death than we do, and that closeness may have created rules around it. Don't stay here. Don't speak the name. Move the camp. Change the routine. Different cultures develop different ways of creating distance between the dead and the living. Not because they didn't love the dead, perhaps because they loved the living enough to keep moving. The challenge was always the same: How do you remember someone without allowing their absence to consume you? And then there are the handprints. Across caves around the world, ancient people left the shape of their hands. Some were made by placing a hand against the wall and blowing pigment around it. We can't know exactly what every handprint meant. It may have been art. It may have been identity. It may have been ritual. But there is something deeply human about leaving your hand behind. Maybe it meant, I was here. Maybe, remember me. And perhaps, in some cases, it was a way of reaching toward someone who was no longer there. A tiny message sent across thousands of years, from one human being to another. We often think of grief as a weakness, something we should overcome as quickly as possible. But look at what grief actually tells us. It tells us that another person's life mattered to us, that their absence changed the world around us, and that memory can shape what we do next. Maybe that's one reason humans became so good at remembering, to remember a person long after they were gone, to carry someone forward. Maybe grief isn't simply the wound left by love. Maybe it is the proof that love was there. The next time you feel that heavy weight in your chest, remember, you're not alone. You're participating in a human tradition thousands of years old, long before cities, long before written history, long before the world we know today. Humans were already trying to answer the same impossible question. How do you say goodbye to someone you still love? Maybe we've never really solved that question. Maybe we simply learned different ways to carry it. Through flowers, through objects, through rituals, through memories, through stories, and through the simple act of refusing to forget. If you want to know more about how our ancestors survived the impossible emotions of history, check out our episode on loneliness. I'm Brian, and this has been Bimil.